turned out to be majestic. He really switched sides at that moment, permitted himself to be photographed with the leaders, and I thought clearly that was a photograph that's going to go around the world. So then he put a big push to the civil rights bill that he had already sent up to Congress. When he was killed, Lyndon Johnson picked up this bill, and so the first time in 90 years, the Congress of the United States passed a really meaningful, wide-ranging civil rights act, and it was, in fact, a memorial to John F. Kennedy. In the end, he turned out all right.
President Kennedy was shot today from an ambush as President Kennedy's motorcade left the center of Dallas where the president was on. The police immediately fanned out over a wide area through the streets, and Governor John Colony of Texas and Hawkins, Mrs. Kennedy, first reports say, jumped up and grabbed her husband and cried, "Oh no," and the motorcade sped on. From then, all was confusion.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital.
I almost lost it. My throat choked a little bit. I had a little tear in my eye. I didn't cry. Tears weren't rolling down my cheeks exactly, and I didn't lose my voice. I recovered from it fairly quickly, but I'm not at all ashamed of that. Some people say, well, you shouldn't have shown any emotion, apparently. That's ridiculous. I don't pay any attention to that.
The John F. Kennedy Platz in West Berlin, as it was when Kennedy came, and as it is today. Heinz Ickstadt was in the crowd when John Kennedy made his celebrated speech. Like me, he came back to the square when he heard that night that the president had been killed. He was a student then. I was the BBC's Berlin correspondent.
My wife and I went out to the movie, and in the middle of the performance, the director of the cinema came out and said, "Kennedy has been shot." And it was a moment of absolute silence and terror, horror. People were really aghast. And we immediately then jumped up and walked out, and I think half of the movie house, or even more than all these people, moved out, and we were almost like traumatized, walking the street, Kurfürstendamm, and I saw people coming towards us crying, and we stopped and talked to them, crying ourselves. So I remember with my wife joining a crowd of people who had spontaneously gone to the place where Kennedy had moved down to the Schöneberger Rathaus.
Right here.
And I think that people came here to share the grief they felt.
I came down here, I heard about the death on the radio, and I waited an hour or so. And then I came down here, and I was standing over there by that lamppost. And a man about 6 feet away climbed up on the top with a handwritten sign in which he'd written John F. Kennedy Platz. That's where the idea came from, of renaming the Rudolf Wilde Platz. And then people were telling each other stories, and somebody said the opera closed down. They were doing a performance of the Battered Bride, and they closed down. The intendant came out and said, "Kennedy's been shot, and we're not continuing the performance," because the singers didn't want to sing, and the orchestra didn't want to play. And then there's the Vienna Ice Review. The skaters didn't want to skate, so they stopped. And one or two of the cinemas went on, but people left restaurants. And Berlin really closed down that night.